going on, guys? Welcome back to Card Talk. I'm Ryan, joined by Lou and Tyler, as always. Big episode today. We're just going to get right into our main topic, and that is going to be Week 1 in the NFL. Football is back, but I want to start with overreactions. We talked a little bit about this, kind of off mic, Ty and Lou, about people not getting too caught up in one game, make it or break it type deal. So Ty, what's on your mind?
Yeah, before we really go there, a couple of things I want to address. First and foremost, if you're listening to this, Ryan showed up in an Ohio State jersey. It grinded my gears wrong, so I had to pull out a Penn State jersey that has a lot of autographs, which kind of I don't love about, but I had to do it anyway, both for the hate to Ohio State, but also the mutual respect as Big Ten brethren.
And I think that's important to point out here, Tyler, is it wasn't as much as I do not like Penn State. It was more of the Big Ten vote is supposed to be today. We record this show obviously early in advance. So the Big Ten vote was supposed to be today about returning a season. So just trying to get some good vibes going for hopefully an October 17th restart date on a season that should have never been canceled in the first place. But we won't go down that road right now. But
then another thing I wanted to call out was I believe on this show, if you've been listening, I probably was pretty on record saying that the NFL would not happen. So just want to give that shout out that they are here. They've done it. And weirdly, after watching yesterday, I just felt like even more so than NBA, whereas if you watch it, you can tell it's visibly different product. Like that was a classic football Sunday in terms of just a lot of games going off, doing their thing. And then also, before we really dive into it, just want to briefly mention that the Nuggets are playing the Clippers in Game 7 tomorrow night. It'll already have been played by the time this came out. Shout out my boy, Michael Porter Jr., for being in a post-game press conference. Wild, man. But called the shot. Let's see if we back it up. All right, let's do this thing.
It's kind of weird how Tyler said like 5 minutes of like personal shout outs to start the show, but it's fine.
Yeah, just had to go there. Kick it off right. All right, focused.
All right, so kind of the takeaway I wanted to get into, like we said, was about Week 1 overreactions, right? So we talked about this at the end of the basketball season, right? As basketball comes back and everything goes up. Well, football's back, a lot of positive trends in the market before the season started. And now we're at the point now where the season has officially begun, Week 1 underway. And you've got things like Kyler Murray looked really good. Lamar and the Ravens dominated the Browns. And J.K. Dobbins scores 2 touchdowns. Shout out to Tyler last week for mentioning that at the end of the show. But in the other hand, you've got Baker Mayfield struggling. Sam Darnold didn't look amazing. And, Dak Prescott loses. Tom Brady throws 2 interceptions. One's a pick 6. And I just think the message should be is patience and doing your research, right? Not being a headline reader that Brady throws 2 interceptions. No, let's not go sell all the Tom Brady cards. So just want to kind of get your guys' take on this, as we've all been in the market, different time periods, Tyler being more new, Lou being in a little bit longer. Just kind of get an idea and a feel from you guys on overreactions and not doing that in the card market based on one game.
Yeah, I hate everything about the NFL today. But I think you're right about that. Like, it goes both ways too. Like there's scenarios with Sam Darnold where it's like, all right, cool. Everyone's going to sell all of Sam's cards now and his cards are going to drop below 100 potentially. Like that's the kind of movement that one might think would happen here. And then on the other side of that, you have someone like Jonathan Taylor, who's now set up to be in a good spot with Marlon Mack out for the year. And it's like, everyone like hold your horses a little bit. Like don't go spending however much money on, Jonathan Taylor Mosaic color card right now. Like chill out a little bit. I think Week 1 is always like overreaction Monday, like city. So I think it's everyone just take a minute and see what's going on here before we start making decisions on where the season's going the rest of the year. Like Deshaun Watson shouldn't be in the tank right now because they lost to the defending champions. Deshaun Watson still Deshaun Watson, like chill.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, look, opening night, Thursday night, this guy had a big moment. And I think this is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, guys are putting him in the Hall of Fame after 1 week, and he had obviously dynamite opening performance. But again, Marlon Mack goes down, Achilles. There's just the NFL season is a long one. And coming up, the interview that we did and talking about and preaching patience and doing your research and your homework, there was a lot of things. But here we are, however many seasons later, and the two guys that I sat back and had a little bit of FOMO about was Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, who both had dynamite opening weeks and have proven that just because things are new and shiny doesn't mean that they're always the best. And those are two guys that I think if you're thinking about long-term, could potentially, you could find some products that are still relatively undervalued in comparison to some newer, shinier objects. Is that a little dog there, right?
Yeah.
So those were the two things that I kind of had a little like FOMO or like I've been thinking about. I'm like, oh, I felt Russell Wilson was going to have a big year. I have the Seahawks. I think they're a real shot at winning the whole thing. Do a little notch down because they have a position for their crowd, the 12th man. That is no longer there. But I found myself sitting there with the same FOMO that we talk about, being about it, but not taking action. Those were two guys that I think if you're paying attention to the league, they've been doing it forever. They're still doing it. They come out, they have a huge week one performance. And off the back of that, DK Metcalf, I think, has a real potential to be a special wide receiver in this league for a long time.
Ty, I think you brought up a really good point though about like Rodgers and right, and there's still be some potential there. And I forget what you said. Sorry, the dog's barking kind of threw me off. But I think the interesting take is you pulled up those Clyde Edwards-Helaire's for the people that are listening on audio. Tyler pulled up Clyde Edwards-Helaire's rookies, right? And he's showing what they're selling for. And you see a Donruss rated rookie card sell for $43. And I think the message I want to get across here, I saw somebody on Twitter point this out, and I think it's such a great take, is we get so caught up in the moment in cards with like, especially with newer guys that have never done anything like Edwards-Helaire, like J.K. Dobbins. And if you're buying them as investment pieces, like say someone pointed out that Saquon Barkley, Donruss Elite or Donruss rookie cards, you can buy on eBay for like $4, $4 to $6. And Edwards-Helaire sells for $43. So at that price, you're assuming, like Tyler said, he's in the Hall of Fame because like you're going to have a product every week for the next 12 weeks in the NFL. You have Origins and Absolute and National Treasures Collegiate, and we'll get into all these products as, those come out, but there's going to be a lot more product coming out. And if you think Edwards-Helaire is great, awesome. Buy one for your collection. I just think we should really preach patience here that if Edwards-Helaire is the guy you want to buy, maybe not spending $43 on a Donruss rated rookie card that for sure with certainty, 100% will not be worth that much money a year from now. No way. It won't even be worth half that much money. It's likely not even going to be worth a fourth of that amount of money, and someone's paying $43 from it because it's FOMO, right? I don't want to miss out on Edwards-Helaire being a Walter Payton Jr., so I'm just going to go buy this and hope that he continues to be great. Like, what happens if Edwards-Helaire has 8 yards next week? You're going to have Return City. And
or an Achilles injury.
Yep. So I just think this is just a straight, like, it's a long season. So with overreacting and, stuff like that, I think this is really a time to preach patience that Edwards-Helaire is going to be good. We like him. We like him in Kansas City on that offense. Let's maybe give it a couple weeks, get some stuff as more products come out and there's more available options for you to purchase something.
Love it. To that point, Lou, you got anything to build off on that?
I just think like I couldn't agree more. Like Donruss rated rookies are like fine, but settle down. Like there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike here, and I understand where people are coming from. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks, right? Like the fantasy people are going to start buying cards now, so like $43 might seem like a lot. I'm sure if people were aware that Saquon were $4 for Donruss, it might change the conversation on that a little bit, but it's the same thing we saw last year where these prices are going to shoot up for these random guys. So like, it's just like we're saying, just be smart, like learn some lessons here. Like it's the same thing. It's very cyclical. So be smart and you can make
every year in the NFL, a running back comes and does really, really well and their stuff sells really, really well. But like long term, a lot of those prices aren't sustainable. But I think this is a good segue into talking about Mosaic. I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but just in terms of Mosaic is on fire, right? I saw Burrow Mosaic base rookies complete at auction over $200. probably not sustainable, right? Joe Burrow looks good. I mean, Bengals didn't have a favorable ending there with an offensive pass interference, a 22-yard pooch kick. Like they kind of, missed out there, but Burrow looks good. But Lou, I know you and I talked about this off camera here about Mosaic is great now because it has a 4-month or a 3-month head start on the rest of the major products being Select, Optic, Contenders, and of course PRIZM. And I think if you're new here and you just got in during COVID, like we said off camera, Ty, you've never seen PRIZM released. You don't know what PRIZM is in football, and you've never been in the market for a PRIZM release, and that will be a big deal when the time comes. So, Lou, you're kind of huffing and puffing over there. What's on your mind?
I'm not huffing and puffing. I think we just did this with Mosaic. Like we did this exact thing, and it was hot for a little bit, and then
basketball.
Yeah, it literally just happened. That's why I'm like, what are we talking about right now? Because this is a Breakers product. There's nothing wrong with this. This is a Breakers product. That's awesome. The cards are shiny. They're colorful. I get it. The second Optic, Select, or PRIZM comes out, it's going to go like this. That's it.
Well, so I just want to voice a little bit, though, that I think we need to talk to ourselves about this for a second, in the sense of,
I love talking to myself.
In the sense of, one, we talked about fantasy people coming big into cards. Mm-hmm. 2, what breaking is today compared to when PRIZM basketball might have came out. And the fact that their new rules are being created constantly. And if you are new,
with the same principles.
Yes. So why should PRIZM football this year be a higher end product or more sought after long term than Mosaic?
Because every single year PRIZM is the hottest one, and we did this.
How many years in the past has Mosaic even been a product?
None. Okay, none.
Standalone.
Let's make a bet. Any amount you want to bet.
I'm just saying, there's a chance.
Joe Burrow, Mosaic.
I think the big thing here is market norms will shift in time, right? Like PRIZM was the brand it has been for a while, and Optic and Select were afterthoughts. Like you could have bought Luka or like courtside rookies of guys for nothing when they first came out. Nobody wanted the courtside silvers, right? Those were in Select. Everybody wanted PRIZM. Eventually the market,
but that's not a thing anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Luka PSA 10 silver courtside's over 10 grand. Mm-hmm. It was like a $300 card.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's not a thing
I think eventually the market will catch up. So Mosaic's good now. The advantage Mosaic football has versus basketball is it's at the beginning of the year. Optic hasn't come out, Select hasn't come out, PRIZM hasn't come out, Contenders hasn't come out. In basketball, it was the end of the year. So people were already focused on PRIZM and Optic and Select because there wasn't anything else.
It was a little like sprinkle on top.
It was at the end. It was like, here's a little extra product. Now it's at the beginning of the year and you have a 4-month head start. So I'm not saying it's gonna be PRIZM. It's not gonna.
I think it's crazy. It's banana land to be like Donruss rated rookie $40. That's horrible. Mosaic kind of interesting. Like no, it's the same thing.
We shall see.
We'll see.
I want to put on record. I think it's a very big deal, and Panini is smart enough to understand what they're doing in terms of releasing Mosaic at the time that they did, comparatively to the rest of the product. Because in the same way market cycles work, PRIZM just can't be the hottest thing forever. It's going to change. If you think about if we went back to the first year that PRIZM came out, there's people sitting there being like, this dopey product, PRIZM, blah, blah, blah. I think there's a shot that in football, and then maybe next year or another year from now, they inverse it and make PRIZM or Mosaic the product that they push first ahead of PRIZM in basketball.
I would make a bet with any human on planet Earth. If you do any player, their Mosaic versus their PRIZM in a 18-month cycle, which card was worth more? The answer is going to be the PRIZM 100% of the time.
You might be
now,
right.
Absolutely. And now, absolutely. It's just, is this product going to build on long term with it being so early in the year where nothing else is there? Like, absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be hot for now, but it's the same. But we can't have the conversation about Donruss and then have the conversation about Mosaic.
This is what we need to do. I'm going to send an email that cycles back 18 months from today. For
Joe Burrow,
Mosaic versus base Mosaic, base PRIZM, PSA 10 price.
It won't be
not even going to be in the only
argument.
I'm not taking the wager. I'm just saying we're going to make
Ty, the only argument I will say about Mosaic is the Mosaic 10 might have a shot to be more desirable because quality control on that product is not very good. I can tell you I've had a lot of it ripped in store. It was a very popular product, right? We do the PSA grading now. We've talked about this before. Like under a magnifying glass, under like a light, like looking at these cards, they have a lot of like imperfections on the surface, and I worry they won't grade very well.
They're going to be rare.
What?
Very rare.
Rare.
That could lead to more 10s and less 10s in Mosaic. And if Prism's, high quality control, there might be a lot of those, 12,000 Luca 10s. It makes you wonder if there's only 1,000 Mosaic 10 burrows and there's 10,000 Prism burrows in a year. Well, you might go to the Mosaic because there's not as many of those. Supply and demand on that. So I think it's an interesting thing to watch out for because Mosaic does, from the ones we've had in for grading already, they don't look super great.
Yes. I don't own a single Mosaic. I've never opened a box of Mosaic. I'm not necessarily fond of them. To your point, I think they're flashy in your face and like aura breakers product. But I do know that there's a lot of people right now that are getting into things, enjoying these breaks, and are like, this is Burrow's card. This is the Tua I'm going after.
For today. This is the KJ Hamler rookie.
So Lou, for your point though, just out of curiosity.
Yep.
You have $100. You have to spend it in this situation. You buy in 2 Clyde Edwards-Helaire Donruss at 45 a piece, or you buying a Mosaic rookie at 100?
His Mosaic's 100?
Mosaic.
I'm assuming
he's throwing a number on it. It's a fair.
I'm assuming they're $100. You could assume
I'd probably buy the Mosaic. I'd probably buy the Mosaic because what Donruss is. I think ultimately, like, here's my like personal POV. It like in the long term, it's Prism, Optic /Select, Mosaic, and then like the Origins and the Phoenix and all that. That's my POV.
I think it's going to be Prism, Select, Mosaic battling with Optic. I don't think you're wrong at the moment. There hasn't been enough Mosaic to rank it ahead of Optic, Select, or Prism because of what those products already are as established in the market for 4 or 5 years. So for now, Mosaic won't pass any of those. It'll be interesting to watch long term.
Also, I say that while having bought 2 spots in a Mosaic break this weekend. So like, it's not like I'm like completely anti-Mosaic. I'm still in the mix. I'm just saying like long term, actually owning the cards. It's tough.
On the, I'm going to do a quick gear switch. Drop the clutch, gear switch. As we're talking about Prism and Mosaic, one thing we were having a quick little banter about before we got into the show was, and Lou, we've been talking about this offline, Castro, who we're going to get on the pod at some point. I have faith. He's a big FIFA streamer. Has been ripping some wax on his stream, focused mainly around footy, around soccer, and starting to really feel some heat around this Premier League Prism product, and wanted to just pull this up, go through some sales, and chop it up, because I think the next soccer product that comes out, we'll talk about in the next segment, that's Select Euro. I'm not sure off top the date that's coming out for Prism again, but I think this product, EPL Prism, is big for soccer overall in terms of bringing that Prism culture juice, and Premier League continuously growing here in the States. You made a mention like this Christian Pulisic is crazy. $4.99
for
is that. Was that because it was because this happens sometimes too, where there's only one of something, so someone just buys it? Like, when did you buy yours, Bri?
My Pulisic, like weeks after, like a week or 2 after it came out, it was super cheap.
I'm not doubting that that's like the real market price right now. I'm just saying like what happens is sometimes when there's one of something on eBay, someone just buys it.
And someone just wants it. Totally.
Yeah.
And the I think a lot of people with Pulisic and him going to Chelsea is like a big thing.
First Chelsea card.
But in general, you're starting to.
Oh, wait. Then
this is the base.
Super. Then 500 super real. 85 is the base.
And these were. There's Adam Traore playing for the Wolves.
27 for another one. What was that? That was
that was as auction.
As you're talking about, soccer doing well, Prism, this Prism EPL product doing really good, is like I remember this product when it first came out, like the expectations were really high for this. Like, hey, PRIZM is the brand in basketball and football. This is what everyone wants. Soccer, right? Like, what are your thoughts here? Christian Pulisic first EPL card, et cetera, et
And
cetera.
it kind of landed a little soft.
It didn't do well. Didn't do well. The resale on it was not very good. First off, the line boxes weren't doing that much over cost. Like, it was like, I ripped them because I was like, I'm not going to make any money selling these boxes. Like, might as well rip them. Ripped them, some cool stuff, sold a lot of it because it just wasn't getting the resale value you expected. And now it seems like as the soccer market has picked up a lot, people are realizing, hey, PRIZM is where it's at in soccer and or in basketball and football. Let me get on this for soccer. And it has really taken off.
That is exactly right. This on 130 sales, this went for $999 this box. This went for $14.50. So like you're starting and we're back in beginning of August, but I think overall as an indicator to mainstream more soccer, there's a massive obviously debate around rookies, sticker, what you're looking at, but for the going forward of the next 2-3 years, Euro Cup, a lot of the things we've talked about, Premier League being huge, man, if Messi would have landed, it would have changed the whole game. You walk around this, you see under 13, you see a lot of Premier League jerseys on kids. And I just think that this product will continue to bubble, and it's just going to be a preview for what is to come. I think maybe you'll see a La Liga, but there's still Premier League is still so dominant US based because of the TV rights and such. But people are starting to figure out Holland, Sancho, Topps has the deal with some of the German clubs. And so just wanted to call that out as we're talking about product and PRIZM and bring that over. I always like to have a little footy chatter.
Before we wrap this up, I think you brought up a very good and interesting point that you might see it in La Liga. Like, what happens when Panini catches on and sees what this sells for? And they're like, hey, if this is going to do well, what about like La Liga? What about Champions League, Euro? Like, they're doing the Select Euro, which we'll get into in upcoming releases shortly. But this could really compete with Topps Chrome. Like, Topps Chrome's really the only that type of product at the moment. Like, there isn't a Chrome or, there hasn't been PRIZM before. So I think if Panini could make PRIZM soccer, it really has the potential to compete with Chrome. Like, Chrome is the market at the moment. So if Panini can turn this into other products, I really think it could do well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited.
All right, let's get into this week's interview. This was an absolutely incredible interview. We got to sit down with Mike Kafka, card collector and quarterback coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Here is that interview. All right, guys, we are here with Mike Kafka, a friend of the show who is quarterbacks coach, Kansas City Chiefs, and a longtime card collector. So I won't get too much into it. We'll let Mike give his introduction, and we'll go from there. So, Mike, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Mike Kafka. I'm a quarterback coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Just like Ryan said, longtime collector. Probably started back when I was 12 years old. My team had the opportunity to play in the Little League World Series, and down in like Williamsport and stuff, you get an opportunity to kind of trade pins and collect pins. And so that kind of really started my card and collecting style, I guess. I actually pulled it out from the archive.
Nice.
Holy cow!
Those are sweet.
That we had. Yeah, there's some really cool
ones.
Let's
go.
Brought me down memory lane a little bit, but that kind of kicked me off there. And then obviously collecting with my dad as growing up, football cards, baseball, everything, just putting them in binders, organizing them.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things kind of went along, like, I don't know, I forget how old I was, probably like 8th grade, freshman year, high school, like Pokemon and stuff like that was getting big. I remember me and my brother just watching it in the mornings before we went to school.
Yep.
And so, obviously having played the game, all that growing up, it was just, it's fun, so really over the last several years, kind of really started getting back into collecting, and it's an awesome hobby. It's something I love doing in the off season and when I have free time, and it's something I hope to pass on to my kids.
Love it. I'm going to just add some juice real quick before we really get into it. It's Saturday. Mike's coming off a nice 1-0 start, taking time out of, I don't know if I'd imagine there's no such thing as an off day once you're in the season, especially when you're trying to defend a Super Bowl championship. It's also fellow Big Ten member. We were having some chatter before. So, just want to give a quick hat tip to, one of the most dangerous aerial attack, leaders while we get into before we just get into all things cards and that jazz. Just wanted to spice it up a little bit. I thought Rye kind of gave you a little bit more on the intro, and I didn't expect you to go there. So just wanted to say, appreciate you taking the time. This is going to be fun.
So I Mike and I talked a little bit before the interview started, and I want to kind of give some background on this so we can dive into the fact that he does get to work with Mahomes every day. Obviously, a lot of us find that super fascinating. But Mike and I actually got introduced through Instagram, through his account, when back in the off season, going into 2018, Mike.
I think for us,
did we lose him?
Yeah, he'll be back
Briefly.
So I will introduce the story just before while his is loading. But back in 2018,
you could pause and have him do it when he comes back, Ryan.
Yeah,
we got to edit anyway.
I got it.
There you go. He's back.
There we
Perfect.
go. There we go.
All right, run
cool. All right, so Mike and I actually got introduced in Mike. I believe it was the summer of 18. Does that sound right?
Yep.
About summer of 18. And this is when I was starting to pick up Mahomes stuff. And I actually had got a DM from Mike about my cracked ice Mahomes card. And I saw it, and it said it was from Mike Kafka. And I've kind of collected cards for a while, so I knew who Mike Kafka was. And I'm like, this can't be real.
Wait, you knew him because at one point,
Northwestern quarterback,
you were picking up Kafka's.
Exactly, like in 2000, it was 2010, it was 2010, right, Mike?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, 2010, like press pass Northwestern jerseys and autos, and 2010 like gridiron gear, he had rookie autos, and so I was picking up his stuff before. So I'm like, this seems a little odd. This can't be real. And he's like, hey, I'm interested in your Mahomes cracked ice card. And at the time, I had just bought it, just to give people some perspective, for about $1,900, and I was getting married later that year, and Mike and I actually had tried to work out a deal on it. He's like, hey, we're going to be in Cleveland later this year. I'll get you tickets to the game, and, you and I can introduce, you and I can meet, and I'll bring Mahomes with me. Like, I'll let you meet Mahomes, right? This is at the game. And I'm like, I should probably pass, man. I got to pay for my wedding. Because, at the time, and I mean this with all sincerity, we didn't know what Mahomes was going to be. Like, I was really high on Mahomes, and I should have probably put 2 and 2 together that if the quarterback's coach is going after him, I should
something's going on.
Something's going on here, and I didn't. So I kind of wanted to throw that out there as kind of an introduction into, Mike, when did you really start seeing, because you were obviously picking them up before most people were, I'm just curious of the thought process on, hey, this guy's going to be really good. I'm going to start picking these up because you get to see it every day.
Before we go, you didn't make the trip because you kind of
No, so I ended up selling the card. And Mike and I've talked about this a lot, and it's unfortunate, but I ended up selling the card at the National later. It was a month later. I
remember you selling that card.
I sold it for $2,400, and it ended up turning into a PSA 10, which is roughly 65 G's.
Yeah.
So I wish it would have worked out, and I would have got to meet Mahomes.
No, that's crazy. That was an awesome first off connection because it's paid off. We've formed a good friendship from then, so it was well worth it.
Absolutely.
I ain't mad at you. I mean, you paid for your wedding. That's perfect.
Yeah, you got married.
Yeah. So, to answer your question, I mean, honestly, when I started collecting, more of Pat stuff, I was really kind of collecting everybody's. I love collecting contender stuff.
Gotcha.
And so, I got Chad Henne contenders, Matt Moore contenders. All the quarterbacks that I've coached throughout the years, even guys in Northwestern like Clayton Thorson, I got his contenders. So getting some of Pat's stuff was just, part of just collecting that set. I just think it's an awesome, great looking set. And so, I pulled out a couple of them that I have here. It's the show.
So Contenders is your thing, huh?
Contenders is my thing. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
I like, and then the variation ends up being pretty cool.
That
Nice.
card's dirty.
Yeah.
So like, things like that, I just thought were awesome. I've gotten graded ones of just all the quarterbacks that I've coached. So that's kind of been my thing there. I really wanted some like nice ones of his, regardless of
Mhm.
if they were super expensive or cheap.
Yeah, that it's I want to go down that path a little bit more in terms of a lot of what we talk about on the show. What's happened, I think, the last 8-12 months in terms of the hobby, it getting white hot, a lot of new demand, which is fun, but a lot of like conversation or these kind of Discord groups or where a lot of conversations are centered around buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling. Whereas what you just kind of even talked about, which is like collecting. And I think when Ryan tells stories of 2010, he was buying and in the game, right? And the amount of times where the different approach of I really like the cards. I really like the design. I enjoy the hobby. I enjoy the process. I enjoy taking bets on different people. I have a personal collection versus a lot of individuals, which no fault to them and not to downgrade, but we like to preach a lot of education, patience, long-term approach.
Sure.
And so where you just said no different was your approach to Mahomes, was it to Chad Henne as again, Penn State guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So just want to like, the long sustain, you said you started when you first got into 12, that aspect of being a collector. Can you talk a little bit about how that has, what that's meant to you? It's not just about the prices, what this is selling for now. You could have never really, again, lightning in a bottle with Patrick, but even the happiness, the joy factor that you've gotten around a lot of other individuals outside of Patrick in terms of the hobby. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's definitely two sides to it. I think the hobby as we know it now, like, 10 years ago, it was a hobby. Like that's, really wasn't as mainstream as it is today. And so, that's really between me and my dad, like we've done a lot of this kind of stuff, just collecting certain players. Frank Thomas was, I'm a Chicago guy, so Frank Thomas, like that's kind of the lens I see the hobby through. I know obviously there's a money-making aspect to it now. And so, you transition. There's some things that you are going to keep forever, regardless of whatever it goes to. I know Ryan has, his guy from Ohio State and his huge Ohio State collection. But, I think when you're thinking about it, and if you're getting into the game or thinking about getting into the game, you kind of want to decide and like you said, do your research, find out what end do you want to be on, or do a little bit of both, right? Maybe you're collecting one guy because you love him so much, or, you want to flip it, but getting educated on, what's out there, what's available, where your bankroll's at, and how do you supplement that? And, how do you keep it fun? Really, at the end of the day, we all did this and collecting or trading or whatever that is, like we did it for fun. So as long as you can kind of keep it within that framework, I think, that's the road you got to take.
Nice. How about when you first were bubbling? I saw the Chicago kid plays in, Big Ten football.
Yeah.
Starts thinking about the league, seeing yourself on a card. It seems like you were very well aware and were into it before that came about. Give us a little bit of commentary around what that was like. All of a sudden, maybe for you and your pops, you're on the products that you previously were paying attention to anyway.
No, I'm telling you what. When I was a rookie, I was actually invited to the rookie premiere. Flew me out to LA. You're there with Panini. All the big companies that were, back then. There's a ton of them. And so, I remember signing all these 101s. I remember signing like my National Treasures 1-of-1. I ended up getting it picked up.
Let's go.
Like a year ago. But I remember signing like, can I just buy these off you right now? As I was signing them, they're like, no, we got to put them in the packs. But those guys are great, and I formed a good relationship with those guys at Panini over the years. But yeah, it was surreal signing all those cards. It was fun. Obviously, at the time, you didn't really like think of it as much because you're like, oh, it'd be cool just to have one of them. But like now, like I'm searching for every single one of my National Treasures, like anything I can get my hands on, and they're not that expensive because it's cool. My dad is on the lookout for them. If he sees a cool one, he'll send me a picture. I just picked this one up. So like that's been the fun of it, and it's been great because it's bonded, me and my dad even more.
Yeah, so like, do you randomly just get like an eBay notification, like Mike Kafka, National Treasure just appeared? Like,
No,
I
my
think
dad's
I'd be so fired up.
He gets up before I do. He'll be already on it. He'll be gone. If it lists, those eBay postings are up like 4 a.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah,
he's already gone if it's posted.
You're competing with your dad for all your 101s.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly. I can't.
That's funny.
He's all over.
That's great.
So, Mike, you kind of hit on it when you were giving us your introduction, but I do want to transition a little bit as well to more of the Pokemon aspect of it, because we do talk a lot about the Pokemon on here, and while it's awesome, you collect a lot of the guys you coach and sports cards. I want to kind of get your take on Pokemon. Like, when did you really start? Like, we talk now about like some of the graded cards. When did you really start to get hardcore into the Pokemon market?
I'd say probably 2 years ago. I was talking to my brother, who's younger. He's 2 years younger than I am. We were talking about just like the game itself on Game Boy, and how some of these cards. I think we saw an article that one of the sets had sold for like 90 grand or like a lot of money. I was like, oh wow! Like I wonder, how does one like piece that together? And so I started looking into it and just kind of like chipping away. Bought a couple of the first editions. I didn't know much about it at all. Shadowless first edition, or just Shadowless, or Unlimited. Like I just saw the cards I liked. Didn't know much about grading at all, and so I was just kind of looking at stuff like this is like overwhelming. How much products there are now. So just kind of started looking into it. Met some other collectors that were doing it on Instagram, just kind of asking questions, kind of piecing together a couple of things here and there. And then actually ended up meeting a person that was selling like the whole non-hollow set just at once. And so me and him were able to like negotiate a price and get that done. So like then I was like, all right, I got to hunt for the hollow somehow, some way. And this is like this is probably like 9 months ago, where like the hollows are like just at this tipping point where they're about to explode. And so, I got in at a great price, but, now I'm 3 away from finishing it all. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get there.
What do you sound the hunt for?
I need a couple of the big boys. I need the Zard, I need a Chansey, and the Mewtwo. And so I think, the Zard is getting out of control. That may not ever be accomplished, but I'm in it for the long game. I'm not going to conclude it today. Maybe one pops up down the road that maybe I have an opportunity for, but it's definitely something I'd love to complete. But if it's something that takes me into when my kids are 12, 13, 14, and they want to get into it too, like that's even better.
Yeah, the Chansey card is just, I think, when I think of Chansey and Mewtwo, like those are my two. I actually have more affinity towards those, I think, than even the Charizard. Like the Charizard is just such holy grail, but Mewtwo, the purples on it are so special, and the pop on Chansey is crazy. And then to your point, we talk a lot about the difference between like sports. We have a lot of running jokes about like Pokemon, like Pikachu's not going to get a DUI. Pikachu's he's not going to blow his ACL.
Right.
There's no real off season. Doug Trio, like he's not going to have, off the field issues or anything like that. Right. And so whenever we're like talking about cycles and sport and all that, Lou and I typically jump in with a little like, Well,
the funny thing was that like when this show started, I don't think Ryan owned a single Pokemon card. And in a matter of like 3 months, we've converted him into a full-on like Pokemon obsessed person, and it's the best.
I owned some Pokemon from when I first started. Shout out to my guy Brian locally, who was like, "Hey man, you need to get into this Pokemon. You need to get into it." And I collected it when I was a kid, so I had some of it. But it's a whole different ball game now. And when the show first started, we talked a lot about I wanted a Charizard PSA 9. You could have bought them for 14, 15, and now they're 20, almost 30. Right. So I'm slowly coming around to it, but
I think it's something that's very interesting. And even when you think about the long-term nature of it, you made a comment, Mike, about like when your kids were 12, so much of other major IP or big kind of like brand stuff. I mean, Harry Potter is another one that's relatively young, but Pokemon in the grand scheme, comparatively to Star Wars per se, is still in this kind of like first generation, like hasn't had the full loop where those that were really into it, their kids are like coming into it. And I think that's a lot of this resurgence that we're seeing. I believe next year's the 25th anniversary of like the official creation of it. And, just the how IP tends to get stretched out. What we've seen from Star Wars over the last 8 years, did the Disney acquisition. I think that gives such a long runway, and is like there's such a strong foundation that's built there that is very different than say prospecting. I'm a big Michael Porter Jr. fan. Like the two completely different avenues of the same kind of hobby, and what is so exciting to me about it.
Yeah, I agree, Tyler. I mean, and you think about it being it's a global brand, and you're seeing that with the basketball market now becoming global. Like, I feel the same way about like this Pokemon stuff. Is it continues to get globally? You talk about one card, your Chansey card, pop was it 46 or 47 or something like that. Like that's worldwide.
Yeah,
there's only 46 dudes with them. So when you think about those numbers, like. It's wild.
And the other thing is, I don't think we're going to see 46 more in our life. Like, there's not going to be 46 more added to the population report.
Yep.
Right.
So
I want to switch gears back to sport a little bit and the recent kind of heat on cards. And like you mentioned, you were into it, and then when you kind of found yourself on product was exciting. How about within the game in general, being around athletes, is there much awareness to kind of even the last 6 months of run up and guys understanding some of the values of their product? Are there conversations randomly happening ever when an article comes up, or any like locker room chatter about what's going on?
Most of it is probably because I probably initiated the conversation. But I mean, I know like for the quarterback room, at least we talk about it. We've had conversations about it. Guys are aware of it. I know Pat's aware of it. His stuff's going for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I know like, his mom and, his family collects some of this stuff. So, which is pretty cool. I think
it's fun.
Aware, and you saw it with like LeBron James and some of the guys in basketball doing it. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see, more players in general get involved. I think it's an easy transition for people. It'd be easy for people who have access to money to go and buy their stuff, and it's fun and cool to collect.
As far as does Pat own any cards?
I don't know about him personally. I know like his mom and sister collect some of his stuff, which is cool. She sent me pictures of it.
We're gonna see one of Pat's like RPAs go off on like Sports Center's gonna post about it, and he's gonna be like, I emoji. It's gonna be like some wild stuff. And I'm just gonna like text Mike like, yo, you lied. What's up?
Why?
Yeah. How about your main kind of mode? I want to talk a little bit about just like the community aspect. Rye, we all linked up at National last year for the first time, and eBay has been a great partner and sponsor of this show with us. The different avenues, something that's been so exciting, and I think Instagram, like you mentioned, around getting into Pokemon and the community aspect of it. What have been some of your kind of experiences? Do you go to trading shows, linking up with people on Instagram? Do you have kind of a separate Instagram? How do you do a lot of your buying and selling, and how do you think about it just from a community and connection standpoint?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think a lot of that time for me happens in the off season, but I've done some stuff on eBay, which has been a great platform. And obviously I've done, I've sold and bought stuff off that. It's easy. You get access to a ton of stuff. But Instagram has been also really helpful. One, from just meeting a bunch of people, whether I'm going after a set or a certain card, they may know somebody who has one, and maybe put you in touch with that person to be able to work a deal on it. That's been fun, meeting so many great people. Then, if you see them post a cool card, you comment and you're able to engage and, see how they got it. And, maybe there's a cool story behind it. I think that's an interesting part of kind of putting together some of these sets is, I've, from the set that I bought from the gentleman that sold me the non-hollow set, he had graded every single one of those cards himself.
That's sweet.
And so for him to like pass that on, like he was like, I know it's in good, like I promise him I'd take care of it. It's going to be in good hands. And for him to like have that story behind it, I thought was awesome. And like made me appreciate it even more than just the cards themselves as assets.
Yeah, that's really cool, Mike. Now, quick question. Tyler kind of hit on this earlier. You talked about like the locker room stuff and kind of what we hinted at earlier with like, hey, when did you start going after maybe some like Mahomes stuff? Is there any other, being on the sidelines every week, is there any other guy you've ever seen play in person and been like, hey, man, like this guy's the real deal? Maybe I should pick up an auto or two of him, from contenders and throw it back and see what happens.
If I'm gonna do that, like because I get to meet these, I get the access to meet them in the pre-draft process, and there's a lot of kids. I'm just like, oh man, this kid's a great kid. Like, yeah, I'll sure grab a contenders if I like him. He may never make the team. Maybe he's a practice squad player, but there's definitely guys out there that I've seen and met, and it's like this is a cool kid. Maybe he'll be a coach one day. Maybe he'll be an all-star. Maybe but I'll snag. I've done that for sure. I have a box of guys like that over the years.
Nice.
Very cool.
I thought it was a fun moment when on Thursday night, Deshaun kind of rolled out right, came onto the bench that night. That was a good moment for those two. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
he's a stud.
It was good to see those guys kind of laugh it off too.
Yeah.
The best part after was the memes on Twitter when it's like the Bears looking at Deshaun and Patrick and saying, what the Bears could have had. And yikes.
Man, it's funny that even that stuff and, but just touching on so many factors that go into it and so much like the internet is hindsight 2020. And I think it actually can equate right now to a lot of different with the volatility and prices that are going on. A lot of what we talk about is FOMO and then also the stomach to know when to sell or cut your losses, and I think what processed through my head is like, it's very easy for the internet to be 2020 about a GM making a draft pick, without being in those shoes. Same deal of Ryan tells a story of, he sells a card for $2,400, he could have graded it and been sitting on 65 G's, but like it's the man in the arena type thing. Any regrets or cards that you've maybe moved on early, putting like the investor side of hat on that you've kind of moved on early and have come back to bite you, or some obviously outside of Pat where you've been, hey, I'm just going to collect this guy. And you look up and 3 years later, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know. Well, when I did this pass off, so I was collecting just a ton of Pat stuff. And so, I had so many PRIZMs and 10s. I had, a bunch of stuff, but there's so much like quantity. I was like, I want to go after some more just like quality pieces, like, singular pieces. And so I liquidated a bunch of those just to get enough bankroll.
Yeah, like some higher.
Towards something else, that was a little bit nicer. And so, I mean, I sold probably 15 to 20 PRIZMs for like, $1,000. Now they're, $8,000 a piece.
Uh-huh.
That was the crazy part about Pat stuff, because like after the Super Bowl, like the month after, it ran up after. It was very strange.
Very strange.
Crazy. That was
his
a
was
very
the first
crazy
example. Time. His was the first example I've seen of like after, like normally the moment is the Super Bowl and then like the week, but then he just kept going afterwards. Like I look back at it and I was like, how did that happen? It's so strange.
Yeah.
So
that was
Mike,
a fun night in Miami.
You have I know you've picked up some, like you said, some cool Mahomes cards. Do you have any of them with you that you can share? Do you have the most recent one?
Say that again.
I said, do you? I know you posted recently your recent Mahomes acquisition. Do you have it with you to show?
Oh yeah, I do.
I just want to show Tyler and Lou.
What do we got? Tricolor. Oh my goodness. Let's
go. I love the patch so much.
That is
like the grade didn't even matter. It's 0.5 away from a 9 too.
That's a nasty card.
Yeah, it's awesome. One of my favorites.
That is such a nasty card.
And then a couple that I got here that, like, honestly, these just 3 came like in a deal, and I just got so lucky. So these are the Contenders playoff ticket. They're numbered to 10, and they're 9s. But I ended up picking up like randomly in like local deals 3 of them. So I have 3 of the 10.
Holy,
There was just a dude in KC who just had all these cards.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's
That's
been the beauty.
nuts.
Like it's been really kind of easy to get some of Pat's stuff in KC because a lot of the local guys and dealers
Yeah.
have done that. I think you asked earlier about going to card shows. There's a couple. There's a couple stores in the KC area. There's really only one show that happens like bi-monthly. Never been able to make it to the national because it's always in the season. But I've gone to the local KC card show a couple times. It's pretty good. I mean, there's great people, great dealers, and you get to meet some of the smaller shops in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And they typically have the beat on kind of what's going on around the KC, who has what, because it's such a small community. And you're looking for a contenders, or you're looking for this. All right, let me call so and so and get you in touch. That's been cool. The community has been awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure the card market in KC, like with all the Pat stuff, and like must be out of control.
Oh yeah, there was so much. There was so much of it. I remember that same off season, Ryan. Just the off season before the 2018 season, I went to that card show in like June, and I mean there was so much Pat stuff there, and I was just I was really picky. I just had a plan on like what I wanted to get. And probably passed on. I should have. I mean, obviously, like you said, hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
But I was really picky. It was like just going after like PRIZMs and stuff like that were really inexpensive. I mean, they were probably like $40 to $60 for a PSA 10 PRIZM. And I was just like, oh, cool. I just snagged a bunch of them there. Left happy as a clown.
Did you say $40 to $60 for a PSA 10 PRIZM?
Oh yeah. Before the starting season.
Oh my
40
God.
to 60. Yeah, I vividly remember that.
I mean, I remember buying like Patrick Mahomes patch autos from like average products for, $50-$60. They didn't sell for anything. I mean, this is before the market, like you said, before the market went like mainstream. Like the market now is so FOMO based, right? Like you don't want to miss out on Mahomes, so you buy every quarterback. Like everybody, like Nate Stanley sells and Cole McDonald sells and all these backup quarterbacks sell for what they could be, but like first round picks didn't sell for that kind of money.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess also like back then, this is now just looking backwards, but like there was some like question marks on Pat of like coming out of college and like what was he really going to become, and so that kind of makes sense, but that's still crazy.
Well, look, I think something that's going through my head is also how and something I would love to hear from you a little bit is, and this is again deviating from cards, but to accomplish what you guys have accomplished is not easy. You can have all the talent in the world and to accomplish it. And I think that's what's so much of what people talk about, him at the age, there's other individuals that have come in and shown talent. And, look, Andrew Luck never won a Super Bowl, and he had it all. And so just the being around greatness and the consistency and something, again, can always just equate back to cards, but someone like Ryan, day in and day out, working this thing, as whether you want to be successful in anything, just the consistency and level of greatness that it takes. There could be another all-world talent that comes around and never wins, that doesn't have the success in Super Bowl. Right. And it comes down to all the guys in the room, everyone working together, and just would love to hear about that, because the hindsight is 2020 is beautiful, but knowing what we know now, there could be not another guy that comes around for 25 years that does that at such a young age, has the talent around him and ability to continue at that level.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. I think the one thing that Pat has done since he's gotten here is he's putting in the work. As a rookie, when he came in, obviously behind Alex, his rookie year was also my rookie year on staff, my first year there, and so we came in together as Coach Reed and the offensive coordinator there, Matt Nagy was the OC. Those two guys were primarily working the game plan with Alex, making sure Alex Smith was ready for the game, and so they kind of put it on me to take Pat under my wing a little bit, use my experiences as a player, and kind of show him a framework for how to prep for a game, and how to study. What am I looking for? Kind of get him on schedule for set him up the right way as far as learning habits and all that stuff that deals with being a professional quarterback. And I think the one thing that Pat did is he put in the work, showed up early. He was meeting us 6:30 in the morning, going over the blitz tape before we even did it with the rest of the quarterbacks or the rest of the offensive line. Studying his play calls, memorizing every single call, on the sheet, on a game plan sheet, memorizing every single one of them. And so I think from rookie year to that second year, he just, he exploded in terms of just preparation, and everything was just rolling off his tongue so much faster. Coach Reed always talks about this offense. It really takes 3 years to really fully master this offense. And so we're seeing that now going into his third year, where he's taking full control of it. And we've given him the keys to the car to go and do that, and have input on the offense. And he's taken it and run with it, and he's gotten the confidence of the guys and shown the guys around him that he can do it.
And Mike, it's go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan. No, Ryan, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's crazy you say all that. It takes 3 years to really master the offense. I remember him saying something in the offseason that hey, I haven't really been playing quarterback all that long. So for what he's accomplished in such a short amount of time, and really taking 3 years to master that offense, it really says a lot to his preparation and what you guys are doing over there, because that's an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, a Super Bowl win, two straight AFC titles. I mean, that's a lot before what is he, 24, 25?
Yeah.
And to switch the framework to if people are listening to this and thinking about cards and the moment right now, which is every day something is changing so fast, rapidly. People want to buy a card for 300, sell it for 3,000, thinking it's going to happen in 2 weeks, and again, those PRIZM 3 years, 60 to 7,000. Okay, cool. But don't come in and start buying cards and being into it, and then 4 months later it's no longer interesting to you because you didn't get that return, and or you weren't willing to put in the work every single day to understand the nuances and how things are changing and come back to it. And if you take a loss, okay, I'm not out of this and this is done. Right. I think that is true across anything and everything, and we tend to lose perspective. I'm back home living in my parents' house, and 6 months people are what are you going to do? It's even in what's happening in the state of this country is can we have some perspective of the time frame versus the work and how long it can put in, and at the end of the journey those rewards come, and not just 2 months I want to buy a card for 1,000 and flip it for 2,000, and if not, it's a failure.
Right.
Yeah, the thing I was going to say, Ryan, was related to that. Didn't Pat tell a story on that LeBron show about how he doesn't actually know how to read defense, or he just learned how to read defenses halfway through last year? Can you explain that to me? Because he said that, and I get it, but I don't understand what that actually means.
Yeah, and I think Pat was dead on, because when you talk about certain defenses, to know there's one thing just to understand just the general concept of a cover 2, a cover 3. Where are their strengths? Where are the weaknesses? But not every team plays those certain schemes the same way. Everyone has a nuance. It could be a leverage. It could be a defender inside or outside. It could be a corner who's pressed or off. It could be a width of the safeties, or a demeanor of a certain linebacker. Those are the things that Pat's talking about, those intricate details. He always understood, or had a good understanding of what the general scheme, cover 2, standard, procedure of what teams are doing. Mm-hmm. But I think where you're seeing now is he's really understanding all those little things and tendencies of potentially, a defensive coordinator. Because when he's out there, it's really, you have to kind of get a feel for, what that defensive coordinator is going to put on, what's going to present to you in certain situations. And so he's grown, tenfold in that aspect.
Yeah.
So, Mike, as we get ready to wrap it up here, 2 quick rapid questions. 1, anything you're working on in terms of cards, whether it be Pat stuff, Pokemon stuff, Mike Kafka stuff, anything you've got your eyes on?
Yeah. So, well, like I said, in the off season is really my big time. In season, I literally have no time for it. And
so we appreciate you taking this time to interview with us.
And I wanted to do it because we had talked about this for a long time. But really the one cool set that I like that's, outside of the first edition set is this 97, kind of some pre-1999 stuff that I was getting into just before the season got rolling. It's a 97 Cardus Pocket Monsters. And so I've, been trying to chip away at these. I think these are like $60 a piece just for like the non-hollows. I think they're like just a cool set, great artwork. And it's like kind of one of the, pre-99, which makes it even cooler. And they're unique pictures. So I kind of got into that set towards the last part of this offseason.
Nice.
Very cool. And then last thing that's been on my mind, I know we've talked a lot about the football, but what I got to ask, what is it like to coach in a Super Bowl?
All right, so the first part of it, walking out of it was awesome. Like the buzz, the energy, you see Jay-Z walking down the sideline with Beyonce, like that stuff, like DJ Khaled is DJing the pregame music. Like that stuff is awesome. Like you'll never forget that. But really once like thing got rolling and kicking, like you're just in the game. And then everything happens just so much faster than in the regular season, than in the playoffs. You get through the game, like, you make some critical plays and you have a good feeling that like it finally set in. Like it really didn't hit me and my family until like the parade. And when you truly want it, like you're on the parade, like this is just insane. Like 1 million people at the parade, like you're just rolling down the street. Like that type of stuff was awesome. And then because of the COVID stuff, we didn't have our ring ceremony until really just like 2 weeks ago. And so we were able just to finally get this bad boy.
Let's go.
Awesome.
There it is. There
Yeah,
it is.
buddy.
Hold on. I got to take a picture. of that.
That's
Give me some.
unbelievable, man.
That is
Nice.
big, right?
Nice.
We were able to finally get these bad boys.
Sweet.
That's so sick.
Yeah, so really like because it was a week, really like a week and a half before we started the season. So we got the rings, happy, excited. We're able to celebrate a little bit, and then now we're just
right back to it.
We're rolling, right? And 31 other teams don't care what you did last year. You got to put that behind you. Use it as a great experience because it's going to help us down the road. But you can't bask in it.
Yeah, it's not going to win it for you.
Right.
That's
Awesome.
good stuff.
It's crazy.
Well, Mike, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and chat with us. So again, thank you
for having me. Thank you for
Absolutely.
letting me show some of the stuff I have. You
Hell
guys
yeah.
are doing great. I love you guys. I'm always listening to you when I'm watching tape. I'll just put it on my drive home, put y'all on.
Appreciate that.
You guys do a great job.
Thanks,
you, man.
Mike.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mike.
it. Keep doing your thing, and congrats again on the recent success. But I know it's not. It's just a preview of what's to come.
All right, and that was our interview with Mike. Really appreciate him sitting down with us. It was a little bit of a longer interview for us, but it was a lot of great content. We really enjoyed talking to him. So make sure you guys check him out.
I was not ready for the Super Bowl ring to come out right at the end there. That was kind of wild.
Yeah, that was sweet. That was sweet. And I wasn't sure. I'll just put it out there. I didn't know how deep, if it was just going to be like a Patty Mahomes thing. I wanted to keep it on the track.
Nah, he's out here.
Yeah, we played a lot of different. That was sweet. That was fun. Jason's going to chop that up nice and distribute it to some Chiefs fandom pages.
You want me to get into the Pokemon thing?
No. This is still live. This is still rolling, Ryan.
I thought you were gonna go. I thought Ryan was gonna do it.
Yeah.
This was hey, Lou. Lou's like,
Hey,
hey.
guys.
Yeah, no, this was. We just did a great interview. This is all rolling in part of the podcast, by the way.
Perfect.
We just did a great interview.
Yeah,
then we brought commentary. Then you froze, right?
I didn't.
No, it was supposed to be Lou.
Right, it wasn't me. It was Ryan who froze.
I
No,
thought
it was
Ryan
supposed to be
froze.
Lou
Okay,
saying,
cool.
speaking of Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
That's not how that was planned out, but that's
You wanted
fine.
to start this. It was supposed to be Lou saying, speaking of Pokemon.
All right, so Pokemon. Last week there was a big sale on Heritage Auctions of a first edition booster box for 198K. Since we love Pokemon on the show, I wanted to make sure we brought it up. But we kind of really oversold that a little bit, but it's fine. So Pokemon 198K first edition box. I think that's just a sign of things to come. I saw a lot of people saying that's a lot of money for a box. I would say those same people were people saying that 130K was a lot for a first edition set, and that's no longer the case.
And I saw this the other day. on Instagram. Again, I'm not super into the Pokemon community, but I saw someone saying they would pay $100,000 for just the Charizard.
Yeah, Charizard's officially a 100K card.
$100,000.
Yeah.
PSA
When we
10,
had
PSA
when we
10,
had
right?
Yeah, it's
when we
PSA
had
10.
when we had Jeremy on, he had just bought the set, and it did what 119, 129
He paid 130 for the set.
earlier this year.
Mhm.
The
In
one
June,
card
I think it
now
was.
sells for almost all of that.
Mhm.
And he's willing to pay 100. Somebody else might be willing to pay 110.
It's like the groundswell of Pokemon has like awakened, and it's a massive global thing. I mean, the amount of people that have been pinging from left and right about interest and people bringing stuff out and just the joy and community around it. And then I think the continued rarity, like, and all the factors we've talked about. This isn't a segment about Pokemon. Let's keep it focused.
That's different from Ty. I usually want to talk all about it. Now he's like, hey guys, we got
I could have went there, but I went here.
all right. So last segment of this episode, after a little bit of a longer one this week, we're going to get into this week's releases. This is what we talk about every week with products that are coming out in stores and online this week. It's products you'll likely see in breaks. But there's going to be a few different ones, a couple baseball releases this week. We've got that Transcendent Baseball, which is like Captain's Collection. We've talked about this briefly before. $27,000 product, 95 autos, stuff like that.
It's insane.
Pretty crazy. We've got Allen and Ginter Baseball. That's like one of those staple, like set collector type sets, kind of old school collectors really like this product. Pretty big for old school collectors. Very similar to like Heritage, stuff like that. And then we've got
I love
Opulence.
Allen and Ginter, by the way. I really love Allen and Ginter. It's
Classic,
so fun.
classic set. We've got Opulence Basketball, high-end basketball, two boxes in a case. It's only a couple cards per box. USA patch autos, booklets, like logo patches, quad autos, or
Oh, that's a cool one.
yeah,
That's pretty
finals
fire.
booklets of Kawhi. I mean, super cool product. Very high-end. I believe it's right around $3,500 a box at the moment. 2 boxes per case, like extremely expensive stuff. But the big release probably this week is the more popular of them is likely going to be Bowman Chrome Baseball. There's 2 different products here. You got Bowman Chrome Hobby and then Bowman Chrome HTA. HTA, my understanding is just 3 autos. It's only 3 autos in the entire box. You open it up, there's like a little fuzzy protector piece on top. Then there's 3 autos, and then it's done. Typically leans more towards breakers. And then there's Bowman Chrome Hobby, which has packs and stuff like this. But gonna let Lou get into it because we've hit on this before in this show about Bowman Chrome, Bowman Draft, different stuff like that. And I think Lou's gonna kind of get into that and tell us what we're looking for here. And
I would say Bowman Chrome is typically the one that I would say of the 3 is the softest in terms of like hot prospects that get into the product. Bowman Baseball usually has a ton of like the hottest prospects of the year or get their first cards in Bowman Baseball. And then Bowman Draft is when all the hot draft guys get their product. So Bowman Chrome will be the softest of the 3. I think in this release, there's a few guys like Luis Angel Acuna is in this one, who's Ronald Acuna's brother. Byron Laura, who's a Rangers outfield prospect. He was recently signed international guy. And then Eric Miller is a pitcher for the Phillies, who I think is pretty decent as well. But other than that, you're going to get like the Luis Robert autos, a couple other rookie autos, but primarily I would say it's more of a major league player product, so not as great.
So the prospects in this will say first Bowman, correct?
Whoever has their first Bowman in this, yeah, there's gonna be minors like Wander Franco's in here. I'm sure Rutschman's in here as well, but the first guys will have that first logo on there too.
And this would be important where if you like, we've released content on this before about first Bowman Chrome rookie, stuff like that it would make sense to check out because Luis Roberts going to have a rookie card auto in here, but that's not the more desirable compared to first Bowman.
Yep,
those autos.
Yeah, like I would say Byron Laura is going to be a guy who's going to be pretty highly ranked some time down the line here in the next few years. So like his card will be, I would bet a year or 2 from now, the hottest card that came out of this will be the Byron Laura.
Cool.
And
Ty,
then,
Lou, any takeaway?
Yeah, we've
Any final
got
thoughts?
one last upcoming release.
We typically do it the week of. That's why I haven't done it yet.
Isn't the
Yeah,
20?
Tyler.
Isn't the 23rd like?
Nope.
The 23rd
Next week.
is next Wednesday, so we'll record it. It'll come out that day. I'm just excited. Can you fault me? Can you fault the guy?
I mean, listen, there's been a lot of rule breaking on the show. Ryan was supposed to introduce this topic just now, and then he didn't. You were trying to get into a little early soccer release. It happens.
Well,
I'm perfect is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
fair.
All right. Next week, hopefully, Western and Eastern Conference Finals starting. We'll hopefully get into that. New releases. Tyler definitely is wanting to talk about Stump the Shop and more. So we'll see you guys next week on the episode.
Nuggets in 7. Peace.